Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Welcome back to Starbase, Texas. This is, of course, where SpaceX is building their Starship vehicles. This is part one of two parts. In part one, we're going to take you around the factory, see what's new, see the ships, see the boosters, see Starfactory from the inside for the first time, and just learn a lot along the way. So stay tuned for part two, where we'll take you out to the launch pad, and we'll also follow up with Elon after the launch and see how it went. So without further ado, let's go on another tour with Elon Musk. Cool. So yeah, as we were saying, I mean, obviously a lot has changed in the last couple of years. I mean, this is all. Maybe in theory, I don't know. I mean,
looks exactly the same. It hasn't changed a bit.
What once was tents is now a permanent looking factory.
Yeah, it used to be intense, and now it's in a building.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've got this, I think, pretty good looking rocket factory building that we've almost completed. We've completed the exterior. This will enable us to have serialized production of the rocket, especially the ship, which will ultimately be made, long term, probably be making 1,000 a year of the ship. So
1,000 a year.
Yeah, well, got to build a city on Mars.
Yeah, that's insane to think about.
Yeah, I mean, we may not build 1,000 a year right here, but I think this is capable of 100 a year.
Really?
Sure.
Wow.
That's only a ship every 3 days.
And
that's nothing.
And well, and it's funny because now, if you think about it, even Falcon 9 these days, you're producing a second stage about every 2 days. And a few years ago, that would have been impossible. No one would have imagined, that they're building an upper stage.
This year we'll make almost 200 upper stages of Falcon.
That's unbelievable.
And next year, probably over 200.
That's
so.
That's a cadence that people I don't think are, just even, you can't even imagine. You can't even fathom that kind of, output like that. That's just
Falcon
crazy.
9 is actually a heavy lift vehicle, so it's there's roughly 40,000 pounds to orbit.
Yeah.
Which is in the normal rocket language would be a heavy lift.
Yeah.
So now Starship's going to be able to do 100 tons to orbit with Starship 2, maybe a little more than that. Mm-hmm. With Starship 3, like at the 9-meter diameter, essentially when the 9-meter diameter is sort of fully stretched out to what ends up being from 120 meters total length to probably 140 or something like that. Then this is like a lot of optimizations and engine improvements, heat shield mass improvements, reducing the amount of propellant needed for landing. Kind of basically do all the things that we've somewhat done with Falcon 9, and you get to a pretty efficient vehicle. I think we'll be able to do over 200 tons to a useful orbit with Starship.
That's insane.
So, and that's with full reusability.
That's with full reusability.
Which is insane. So that's twice the Saturn V with full reusability. And full and rapid reusability. So it's the booster and the ship are coming back to the launch site.
Right. Should we take a look at what's going on in there? So, so as far as, we're seeing all this, you're talking about even version 1, maybe being able to do less than 100. But is version 1 really even going to, I feel like version 1 in my head
version
is just
1 is just to the point of, and we're really kind of Starship, we're version 1.67, I don't know.
Right,
it's like we're like many iterations through on version 1.
Yeah.
So.
And it's just a canvas. It's a test experiment still at this phase. It's just I don't think people, they see it and they don't understand that this is all just still a giant test at this stage.
Yeah, one way to look at technology is to look at it as like you're rendering an image in successive levels of detail. So the first layer of the image is very, very blurry and things are out of place, and then with the next pass, it gets a bit more defined, and things kind of shift into place. And you do another pass and another pass, and eventually it's something that is refined and actually works.
Right.
But we're in uncharted territory with Starship. So there's not like nobody's ever made a fully reusable orbital rocket.
Right.
And that's really the critical breakthrough necessary for life to become multiplanetary. For us to become a true spacefaring civilization, we have to achieve full and rapid reusability.
Yeah.
So I call it rapidly reusable, reliable rockets.
R squared. Or R
RRR.
RRR, yeah.
Pirate. Space pirates.
There we go. Yeah.
So,
and it's the thing is that people need to remember is achieving orbit's been solved. I mean, you guys have been getting to orbit for a long time. Reusing it.
Getting to orbit at all was solved in the 50s.
Right.
I mean, so I mean, I really don't think there's another point in an expendable rocket, in my opinion. Or at least I think the math clearly demonstrates that there is no point in an expendable rocket. You have to achieve reusability. We have reusability in cars, we have it in airplanes, we have it in bicycles, horses.
Yeah.
It's bizarre to not have reusability in any other form of transport. Boats. It would be insane to like chuck a boat away after every trip.
Right.
But this is how rockets have worked for the vast majority of time. In fact, SpaceX is still the only rocket that has any reusability with Falcon 9.
Right.
So with Falcon 9, we bring the boosters back. We refly them frequently. We bring the fairings back. We refly those. It's only the upper stage that is expended.
Right.
Now Falcon 9 does not qualify as rapidly reusable.
Right.
Because most of the time the booster is landing on a ship in the ocean.
Right. So it takes a few days to get it back.
Yeah.
Oh, that's speeding up like crazy. I mean, the cadence out of the Cape is unbelievable.
Yeah, we're trying to squeeze every quarter of a knot that we can out of the drone ships.
Yeah.
So
seems that way.
Yeah, we're jacking up the power on the ships, streamlining them, increasing the power on the tugging vessel so we can just haul ass as quickly as possible.
Well, yeah, I think you just had your fastest turnaround just last week. There was it was something like, I don't remember the time, but it was something like 2 days or something from catching back and then out to catch again. It was just insane. It used to take so much longer, and those are all those little things that people just aren't necessarily paying attention to that are continually improving. And the
SpaceX Falcon team is doing an incredible job of achieving fast turnaround reusability given the architecture.
Yeah.
Now that's still, however, a couple days to get a booster back, and then at least a few days to refurbish it for flight is still not rapid by aircraft or vehicle. Like if you take cars, boats, planes.
Right.
Doing a trip every 4 days would not cut it in a car.
Right.
Or an aircraft.
Right.
With Starship, the booster comes back to the launch site, is caught by the arms. This would be quite spectacular to see. Giant Mechazilla arms catching a rocket in midair, and then those arms put it back on the launch site, so you can have the booster back on the launch mount it's going to come back and land in like 5 or 6 minutes.
Right.
So then you'll probably get it back on the launch site in, if you really push it, you can probably get it back on the launch site in 10 minutes.
Right.
Or even 5 minutes. And then you can fill it up in half an hour. So you could be ready to go an hour later from the booster standpoint. And then if you've got ships lined up, you can drop another ship on, fill it with propellant, and in theory, you could be launching every couple hours.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine now, but it was hard to imagine where Falcon 9 is today. 10 years ago, no one would have imagined what Falcon 9 is doing now. So I think time will tell that you can just keep chipping away at all those little improvements. And so, do you think you'll actually fly?
Falcon 9 used to have reusability measured in months, then weeks, then days. And then for Falcon 9, the architecture is limited to, you really can't compress it down less than several days.
Right.
When you take the landing out to sea and then the necessary refurbishment of the booster that is required. So with Starship, we'll take it from days to hours.
Wow.
Do you think? So then the ship has to go around the Earth, and depending upon what orbit it has, it's got to have a ground track that comes back over the launch site.
Right.
So that could take several orbits. So the ship could take several hours, sometimes half a day or something like that to come back.
Reline, yeah.
Yeah. So you'd want to have a lot more ships than boosters.
Yeah.
So if you're really going for max launch rate, you probably want roughly 5 ships for every booster. Yeah.
And that's what you guys are building a pretty massive cadence here of ships and boosters already.
Yeah.
Now, do you think?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's pretty slow compared to what it will be, like very slow. But we're also iterating the design, so like each one is a little different from, in some cases, a lot different from the last one.
Yeah. Are any of these are any of these going to be the V2 yet? Are we starting to get close to some V2 hardware yet, or?
Yeah. The stretch version is basically V2. Well, I guess it depends on whether we call it V2 or don't call it V2. The slightly stretched version is V2, ugly. So, yeah. So you can see, what we have here is a Starship with, you've seen the heat shield side and the non-heat shield side.
Yep.
It's got the what we call the PEZ dispenser for tossing out the next generation Starlink satellites, the V3 satellites. So those will be very wide diameter, like sort of, I don't know, 7-meter diameter satellites.
Yeah.
So 22 feet or something like that.
Right.
So